Hi everyone, and welcome to the second masterclass of GenAI Hackathon. I am Simarjeet, and I am thrilled to see you all for joining us today. Let's make a moment to understand what is this hackathon all about. The GenAI Hackathon APAC edition is your chance to revolutionize AI solution for your region. You can dive into real-world challenge across industries like banking and finance services, manufacturing, retail, and e-commerce media, entertainment, and innovation and building cutting edge applications like tools like Vertex AI, Duet AI, Gen AI, App Builder, Modern Garden, and more. Whether you are a seasoned developer or just starting out, this is your opportunity to build something remarkable for the society. One important thing to note here is that currently we are in ideation submission phase. So make sure submit your submission idea on time. The deadline is 8th of March. Now we have speakers with us to provide you individual insights. I'm honored to introduce Abraham Sukumaran, lead developer advocate at Google. She has over 17 years of industry experience leading delivery of high performance, scale, cost effective solution or data management application simplifying business solution for the technology. As a developer associate leader in Google, she helps developers, customers, and startups to drive into innovation, learning, adaptation, and excellence. We have Bhushan. He is the AI consultant of Google. He has over 12 years of industry experience and a PhD in fingerprint biometrics. As AI consultant, he breaks down complex AI concepts into understandable terms and help you today to learn how to integrate AI seamlessly into exciting workframe, ensure smooth adaptation, and maximize efficiency. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Simarjeet. Hi, everybody. I hope I'm audible. I'm going to share my screen right now before I get started. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Abirami Sukumaran, and I'm a developer advocate at Google, and I focus predominantly on Google Cloud databases and the services and products in the data to AI journey. So I hope you all were able to attend or at least go back and look at the video or the recording from Masterclass 1. We spoke a great deal about, or at least introductory concepts about all the things that you would be able to do with generative AI, large language models, why Google Cloud or why Google Cloud, what are the different ways you can use AI, ML, and generative AI in Google Cloud, Vertex AI, and we actually did quite a deep dive into Vertex AI on the Google Cloud console. We were able to, we did some prototyping, or at least I showed you where you can go and put prototype for yourself. I also walked you through the various categorizations of the models, the assortment of models in Model Garden, and we also went through the Vertex AI or Generative AI Studio, where you're able to run a quick prototype, look at the code, and get started at your own pace with the models of your choice. So in this session, and also we went through some of the advanced concepts. At a high level, we talked about how you can use Gemini. We also talked about cloud functions, Cloud Run. If not, we'll just touch base on that again this in the session. We also talked about model tuning. We talked about distilling or distillation, grounding, extensions. We spoke about all these concepts. We also talked about different kinds of models that are there for your use. So in this session, we'll deep dive specifically on Gemini and how to use it in your application in different ways, right? So we'll be looking at 3 hands-on applications. They are interconnected. Of course, you need not complete one to complete another. To get started with another. You can, of course, look at each one of those independently at your own time if you're looking to get your hands dirty and complete these labs. The links to these labs will be provisioned in the chat right about now, I believe. And If you want to look at it whole as a whole, continued or with continuity as a complete exercise, you can also go through with that as well. So we'll cover that as a continued series of exercises or three labs in this session. But before that, just a quick recap. We discussed that Vertex AI is one-stop shop for all AI, ML, and generative AI needs, and all the models that you have, the foundational ones, the ones that are customizable, and every or hosted, the open models, all of these are available there. And beyond that, you also have a way to build the whole ML pipeline, or and do ML ops, everything under one umbrella or under one hood, and that's what we call Vertex AI. We also have broad and deep support for Gemini, for all the models that are part of Gemini, and you may want to take a look at what's available for you, and choose the one that works best for your application or your choice of idea for the hackathon. Of course, we have Duet AI as well, for helping you or aiding you or guiding you through the stages and helping you get started with your application and helping you get your idea rolled out into a product or an application. We will not do a deep dive in Duet AI today, but there are a lot of videos out there. There are also some sessions that I have presented that is available in the video. So take a look at that. If not, the code labs, the links to the code labs that are presented to you in the chat also touch base on how you can leverage Duet AI to complete each and every step that we'll be discussing today. I wouldn't or me or Bhushan, we wouldn't be walking you through each step using Duet AI. I just want to establish the fact that at this point itself, that you can use Duet AI to get answers to things. It's basically a companion, not just for coding, but also for all the components, all the products in Google Cloud and everything under Google Cloud umbrella that you're interested in using, or any technology platform or language, programming language for that matter. You can get code assistance, you can get informational Q&A responses for your questions, and so on and so forth. You can even get started, like bootstrap your application. You can even get started with code generation, code suggestions, and how-to questions like, can you give me this command, or how do I go about building this application, or what would be the ideal architecture. So you can get help at every stage of your software lifecycle. So that's what Duet AI is. Of course, we wouldn't be using that in today's session, but the reference to that is available in the code labs. AI Studio, again, we looked at it in the last session. We went through Vertex AI, we went through the console, we went through where to find prototyping samples, or there are some samples out of the box that are presented as templates. You can use that, you can fine tune that, you can customize that and get started from there as well. We looked at it in the previous session, so we won't be deep diving into that either. So we'll do a deep dive into Vertex AI application specific, sorry, API specific or SDK specific implementation using Gemini. And also we'll look at how to bring in your data and make use of the data, and get your data to talk to Gemini, and get your responses. And we'll also see how to build applications around it, because once you ideate, once you're ready and all your submissions are ready, you're looking at how to productionize. And when I say productionize, like how to roll out your idea into an application. How can you present, how can you make the components come together and put the pieces together and get it to work. So we need to know end to end, like starting from data to databases to how to incorporate that to Vertex AI, or how to get it deployed serverlessly. So those are the things we'll be looking at today. Of course, the heart of it will be using Gemini. So that's something we'll be looking at as well. Of course, this part we already touched base on in the last masterclass. Once again, just a quick overview. We spoke about foundation models, domain-specific, task-specific, and open-source models that are available in Vertex AI Model Garden. And we also saw how you can augment, how you can fine-tune, how you can distill, and some advanced capabilities like deploying the distilled model that you've created, or grounding a model in grounding the response in a way that you're asking the model to specify the source where the response is coming from, right? So that would cover grounding. And then you have retrieval augmented generation. We saw two examples for that hands-on at a high level in the last session. So go back, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, please go back to Masterclass-1 and take a quick reference to the RAG specific implementation. It would be really helpful, and it would come in handy to implement your idea for the hackathon. So definitely go through that as well. In this session, we wouldn't be deep diving on RAG or extension or fine tuning or distilling or grounding for that matter, just to give an overview of what each one means. Fine tuning, of course, is taking a model, and tuning it in such a way that the response is applicable to your data set. For instance, let's say you're using Gemini for summarization, but your summarization or your information is specific to a certain industry like insurance or healthcare or something of that sort. So you will want to train the responses by giving sample prompts and sample responses in a specific format that the fine tuning of the model expects, and train it in such a way that you tune the model and deploy it and use it, right? So you're not tuning or you're not changing anything in the foundation of the model, rather you're changing the way it responds. So that is fine tuned. And then you have distillation, where you will make the model fit the size of your data set, meaning you don't probably need the vast model that exists, right? The entire in its entirety, you won't need the whole foundation model itself. Rather, you would want to take the model and make it work for the subset of data or the data that you have. So basically compressing it and making sure that it's only applicable to your expected, or whatever size you're expecting it to grow, only to that particular expectation, is what we call distillation. Again, where you can find console specific utilities or console specific, what do you call that, features for this. Everything is available in Vertex AI. You can also programmatically achieve these things. So just take a look at the documentation to get through these things. These are not some of the things that we'll be looking at today, because you can use Gemini as it is, and we'll be looking at how to use Gemini as a foundational model for the use case, right? And then you can also do extensions. Extensions help you build like, for example, it helps you connect the foundational models or any of the large language model, in this case, let's say Gemini model. It helps you connect that with other APIs, external systems, to their APIs. For example, let's say use you want to build a slide deck from a doc, right? From a doc, Google Docs. So you'll probably use the API of the Google Docs and the Workspace API, possibly. But then you want to use Gemini to do that. So you'll use extensions to connect the model, the Gemini model, to the API of the workspace, the Google Workspace platform, right? So similarly, with anything, with any social media platform API for that matter, or you may want to use API function calling, so on and so forth. There are multiple use cases. Just imagine any third-party application or any external system that you want to integrate with the generative AI model. You will use extensions for that, and our extensions, the model's extensions API is available for you to. The extensions framework is available for you to get started. You can even build extensions are available for, I think, and I don't want to just go ahead and validate what are the external applications that the extensions are available for. As far as I know, it's available for Firebase and Android, and I know that you can do it for workspaces. There are multiple other external systems that you can use extensions on. Now, the next one that we'll be looking at is, okay, now diving deeper, we want to go ahead and build using Gemini. And how would I build an application where the application is deployed serverlessly and you will get a REST endpoint? So this can be consumed by any application or database system, or your front end or your back end for that matter. So let's divide this application or this use case. I'll come in a bit to what use case we're going to build. But imagine the rest of the session is divided into three parts, right? The front end, the data layer, the core, and the let's say the utility layer, the generative AI layer, right? The front end, back end, and the generative AI layer. The front end is a web application, and that's the last part. After the core, the generative AI part is built, which is the essence of the use case is built, and after the back end is taken care of, the last one is where we'll talk about the front end part, right? So we're dividing it into three parts. The first one, what we'll do is we'll implement the generative AI use case, and we'll build a cloud function around it. So it's deployed independently. It's like a module. It's a function that exists on its own with a REST endpoint. So this function can be consumed by your backend, your web application, or whatnot. You can call it anywhere. If it's available as a REST endpoint, you can have dependencies that consume that, right? So that's the first part that we're going to build, which is building that Cloud Functions API, and we'll implement this for a bookshelf application. Let's just say we'll use the books database, and we'll ask certain questions, or we'll just ask it to summarize, right? So that's all we are going to do. But once this cloud function is deployed, we are in the cloud functions, we'll be invoking the Gemini API, right? We'll be implementing the Gemini API, which means you can pass a request and get a response, just like you would do with the Gemini in the Vertex AI console. You go to Vertex AI console, go to Generative AI Studio or Vertex AI Studio. You'll ask questions, you'll pass in a prompt, and you'll get a response, right? So this is exactly what we are mimicking, but we're going to build a cloud functions for it. So remember, there's going to be a prompt which will be taken as input or request to the function, and the response will be the response from Gemini, which is in the string format. That's all we want. And this is what we are building independently as a cloud function. We are putting the pieces together to form a bookshelf application. But remember, this can be used in any use case of your choice that you're building as part of the hackathon. Right? So this is what we are going to build. We are going to use Gemini SDK for Java, and we'll build cloud functions around it, which is a Java cloud functions, of course. And we'll get a REST endpoint. Now, the input format for this and the output format for this might be slightly unique. You might be thinking, why am I passing a JSON array as input? Why can't I just pass a string? There is a reason why we are doing it. Because like I said before, we are building out the three components to be able to integrate with each other, which means the backend is expecting the request and response to be in a certain fashion. So I haven't come to what the backend part is. So before we get to that, I want to complete the first part. And then when we get to the backend part, you will understand why the request and response are in a certain format and it has certain labels. You'll understand for yourself why that is the case when we discuss the backend, because it is necessary for you when you're building out your application with generative AI for hackathon. You would need to use database, you would need to deploy your application, so you'll be scrambling around with these things. So if at all it happens that you're using BigQuery and you're using this method to invoke your generative AI implementation, then probably these are some of the things that you'll want to remember. All right, and then the last and final part, which is slightly independent, or I would like to think you can just go ahead and build that without the need for the other two, is the web application part, which invokes, of course, it just invokes data from BigQuery. I would like to think it will invoke the data that is there in the summary that we'll create with generative AI API within BigQuery itself. But as you're listening into the session, you can assume that that can be anything. It can just talk to a backend. It will just be talking to a BigQuery backend. It's just that our backend is going to have generative AI summaries or generative AI insights for the use case that we are taking in hand. All right. So now moving on. This is the first code lab, bookshelf-duet AI-BigQuery, that you would have received in the chat. If not, you can just look at this, bookshelf-duet AI-BigQuery. Just go to codelabs.developers.google.com, or just in Google search, you can type the keyword bookshelf-duet AI-BigQuery space code lab. You'll land on this code lab right here. And this is what you would be seeing. So whatever I said so far is there in introduction. Like I said, the implementation is divided into three parts, and all the three parts are published as three different code labs, which is what is described in the introduction part. I'm not going to repeat it. Moving on. Like I said before, the three code labs are built in such a way that you can use or leverage Duet AI to guide you through the process. But we are not in this session going to use Duet AI specifically to guide us through the process, because we want to let you know that it is right there. I'll probably show you where Duet AI is. I'll probably show you how you can use it, but we won't go through each and every step because we really have less time and we have to complete all three. So that's the reason why we won't be doing it. But I'll show you where it is and how you can use it. So it will help you in your process. It won't be part of your deliverable, but it'll aid you in building that deliverable. So that's what it is. Requirements. Quickly, let me go to my console.cloud.google.com page. So this is where you will land. If you go to console.cloud.google.com, you would have your credits, cloud credits. If not, you'll probably receive it before you right in time after your registrations are all done, or submissions are all done, if I'm not wrong. And you'll be able to see this Google Cloud Console landing page, or welcome page, or dashboard, whatever you want to call it. And you should see Google Cloud logo on the left. And then right next to it, you should see the Google Cloud project, which is selected. If not, you select this, click this drop down, click new project, create your project, and make sure it has an active billing account associated with it. And the active billing account will be there as part of the credits that are being provisioned to you for the hackathon. So you should be good with that. And then we have on the right, if you can see, you have open Duet AI, the diamond-studded chat icon. This is Duet AI. So click that, and you will, if this is the first time you're using Duet AI, it'll ask you to enable Cloud Companion API. It's just a click of button, pretty self-explanatory. Just go ahead and click that, and it'll be immediately enabled for you. And you can ask questions like what is Cloud Run or anything that you want to understand from any technology component that spans across Google Cloud, and anything specific to any programming language or tech stack as well. It's going to give you the answer. So keep it as detailed and as specific as you want the response to be. Make sure you add the expertise level with which you want the response to be presented to you. So remember all those things. But anyway, this is how you activate Duet AI. I'll also show you how to activate Duet AI in the editor IDE, integrated development environment, in a bit. But before that, we have to activate Cloud Shell. So what is Cloud Shell? This is something that allows you to interface or interact with all Google Cloud services. So when you activate it by clicking this icon over here, it provisions you with two things. One is a Cloud Shell terminal, which is what you see in my screen, and two, Cloud Shell editor, which is also what you're seeing in my screen right now. Typically, you would get that side by side, or you can toggle between editor and terminal like this by clicking this button, right? Some people like to toggle and work on one at a time, but I'm pretty comfortable having these things open in two separate tabs, so I'm going to stick to that. This was just to show you. Anyway, so Cloud Shell Terminal is where you run the Cloud Shell commands or G-Cloud commands or any command line command prompts, basically to interact with all the services in Google Cloud. And the editor is where you write your code. It stores your code. It's just like a VS Code editor, right? It's called Cloud Code also, or your Cloud Shell editor. You can call it as Cloud Code editor or Cloud Shell editor. It has the look and feel of your VS Code editor or typically any other IDE for that matter. It connects directly with your GitHub repository, and it has other features here and other components that you typically use with your IDEs. And then you click here, you have Duet AI for your assistance. If you've enabled it in the first landing page where I showed you, you'll probably be able to see this Duet AI icon over here in the status bar. It's checked out, it's crossed out for now. You can actually click that and enable it. And you can actually, you'll have to sign into your Cloud Code editor, because that is the part where it recognizes which project, which is Google Cloud project, you're using this Cloud Shell editor for. So definitely choose that. Make sure your current project is active, project is showing right here, and Duet AI is enabled if you want to use Duet AI. All right. If Duet AI is not showing up here, you probably don't have it enabled. So what you can do is you can click on the Cloud Code icon over here, and in the search bar, you can actually search for in change settings, you can actually search for Duet AI and make sure these two are enabled, which is Duet AI enable and inline suggestions enable. So if you have these, or you can enable anything else that you want, just scroll down and see what all you want in the settings and enable it. But these two are mandatory to get recommendations and suggestions and help actually from Duet AI. That's what it is. So I'll stop with Duet AI right here. So one last thing, if you click Duet AI, you will get the chat on the left side corner as well. So you can ask questions, which is it has the context of your entire workspace. And you can just ask questions about project within the context of the workspace, or generally any generic technology related questions. It'll be able to help you with answers. At the same time, if you're in a source code file, it will be able to understand the code, understand the context, and help you with suggestions, generate code, explain existing code, or translate existing code to another programming language, so on and so forth. All right. So moving on, going to the code lab now. We are done with Duet AI. I've explained to you how you activate everything, how you activate Cloud Shell Terminal, Cloud Shell Editor. And you also have to activate Vertex AI, because we are going to use Gemini API, like I told you. So all necessary APIs, if it's the first time you're using, it will prompt you. It will already ask you when you search for that particular service, or when you're using it, or when you're deploying it, it is going to ask you to activate it or enable it. So if you're not enabling it in the first step, like in step 4, in my case, I've listed all the APIs that need to be enabled using G-Cloud commands. In my case, these are all enabled. If this is the first time you're running some of these services, you might want to, in this particular current project, you might want to run these commands and get these APIs enabled. Even if you don't enable it at the beginning, it's still not a problem. At the time of your deployment or invocation, it will prompt you to enable the corresponding API. So you will consciously know what services are going behind the scenes of the application that you're building with the help of Google Cloud Services, right? So definitely you will be able to enable those. Now, moving on to step 5, assuming that you've completed all the preliminary steps when you're looking at it at your own time, moving on to preparing Cloud Functions template. Like I said, what are we going to build now? We are going to build a serverless cloud function. Serverless function, meaning you don't have to deploy it and maintain it and other things. I mean, of course you will deploy it, but then it's a straightforward one line deployment, right? You wouldn't be maintaining the server for it. No more, nothing is the taking care or maintenance of the server is not done by yourself. It will be taken care of by Google Cloud, and you'll be only paying for the requests that the number of times you're calling that function, the deployed function, not for actually deploying it itself. So those are some of the things that you might want to know when you're using cloud functions. And then in this case, like I said before, we are going to use a Java cloud function. You can choose whatever programming language you want from the list that's available for cloud functions. So there's an easy way for you to bootstrap your first cloud functions application. I'm going to show you how. So like I said, this is not what you'll be seeing, right? In your case, let's just say I'm opening editor. Okay, just forget this. Don't look at all these complicated or things that are already open in my system. Just say that if it's the first time you're opening Cloud Shell Editor, you will still see the status bar in the bottom. You will see the project, Google Cloud project on the left. You will see Duet AI on the right. Make sure you click the project ID or project name, whatever is showing. Just click that. It'll pop up this cloud code dialog, and it'll say these options. It'll list these options for you. What we're going to do is build a new application. What application we want? Cloud functions. So I'm going to click cloud functions. And what cloud functions we're going to build? We want to build Java, right? I'm going to click that. And in this case, I want to name it as, say, Gemini function calling hackathon, right? And I'll say enter. Now it'll open a brand new view of the editor with the current project, just the project that I created, open with the stack, the entire stack of the cloud function. So you don't have to do anything. Everything is bootstrapped already, ready for you. The pom.xml is already filled in with the necessary dependencies. If you know Java, you know that this pom.xml is where you put in the dependencies. For the, like in this case, we are going to use Gemini. You want to make sure the library for that is included. Correct, it won't be included by default because nowhere you mentioned that you want to use Gemini, right? So this is just a skeleton of the function that has been bootstrapped. As you can see, there is a template class that's been created, which is hello world. Of course, if you go to launch.json, you have all the preliminary configuration things that are set up for you. Now let's go to the code lab, adding dependencies. Right? So this is the first step. We know that we want to use Vertex AI's Gemini SDK for Java, but then you don't know where to start. So you can, of course, use Duet AI. I'm not going to use it now, but I'm just saying if you open Duet AI chat right here and ask what is the dependency I want to use, it'll suggest the dependency that you want to use for Vertex AI. I already have those, how to use that and how to use Duet AI chat console for this listed in the code lab. So please refer to that. Right now, I'm just going to copy the dependency, come back here to my pom.xml, search dependencies, and then I'm going to save, add it right here. We also want to handle JSON. So I'm going to use this JSON library from com.google.co.json. So I'm going to just paste that as well. So these are the two dependencies that I know I want to use in this particular cloud function. So I'm saving these two. All right, moving on. We want to modify the function's entry point, right? Because we are not going to do a hello world program. We are going to do more. We are going to do Gemini function, Gemini invocation, right? So how would I define that? I don't want it to be called hello world. So I want to change a few things. So I'll change function hello world to function Gemini calling. Just copy this from the code lab if you're following the code lab, or in your case, whatever it is, you can do that. Now, if you just do it with hello world, it's still okay for demonstration purposes, but I think I'm just OCD at this point. So I'm going to use the corresponding names, the corresponding entry points. As mentioned in the code lab, I'm changing the function name and I'm changing the entry point as well. Now this is set. I'm moving on to the source file, which is hello world.java. Again, it's in a package called hello world, which I don't like. I want to change it to cloudcode.bookshelf. So I'm going to copy that as well. And I'm going to change this to cloudcode.bookshelf. And I also want to, because it's showing an error, here is where you can actually see Duet AI's help in real life. So select that error. You see a yellow bulb, click that. So two options, move hello world to package cloudcode.bookshelf or change package declaration to hello world. I really don't want to change it to hello world. So I want to move this to package bookshelf. So let me do the first option. There you go. It has created a package called Bookshelf, and your source file has been moved into that. So that's a demonstration of how Duet AI can help you when you're in trouble. I mean, trouble with respect to your IDE and the source code that you're writing, not when your car has a flat tire. And then moving on, we have to also now change the class name, which is Hello World. We want to change it to something nice, which is probably Bookshelf, right? We want to rename it to bookshelf.java. So change your hello world.java, rename it to Bookshelf. And as you can see, it refactors itself to Bookshelf. But too bad we have the entire source code written here to use Gemini. So I'm going to copy this entire thing and replace the whole package here. Sorry, the whole class here. As you can see, there's no error at this point, but there are some things that you may want to understand. As you can see right here, we are using, where are we? Yeah. We are using the dependency Vertex AI. And we are going to use the Gemini Pro model from there. Where is it? Here. Generative model, and model name is Gemini Pro. Just take a look at what are the models you have access to and see which one you want to try it out with, or which one suits your use case. Choose that particular model. This one particularly uses Gemini. So I'm going to stick to that. Replace this with your project ID. Of course, you want to pass in your project ID. And of course, you'll be using environment variables. I'm just doing this for demo purposes. 3450. This is my project. Everything else is good, and that's it. I'm coming out of that. I have changed, and you can understand. You can ask Duet AI to actually help explain what this code does by clicking this yellow. Okay, it's not connected, but if it is connected or if it is signed in, it'll actually explain the code for you. But I'll tell you what it does. If you say explain this, it is actually telling me. It is generating what it does actually. Anyway, so it is an example of how to use Google Cloud Functions framework to create a function that calls Gemini model from Vertex AI. The function takes JSON object as input, which contains an array of calls. If you see, it's to that extent of detail. If you look at it, you will understand. I've used the label calls, and the response has the word replies. If you continue to read through it, you will also see that the word replies is used in the explanation. And it explains each and every single line in the source code. So this is something that I explained to you before. We are doing it for a certain reason because we want the backend to be able to consume it as it is without much of a change. So that is why we are passing an array, JSON array instead of just a string. Right. So that is pretty much it. That is pretty much what this function does. It just invokes Gemini by passing a JSON array as input and getting a string output, a JSON string as output. Right. So that's pretty much it. Now, moving on to the code lab, what else do we have? We have the function ready. Now it's time to deploy the function. So what I have to do, this is where the terminal that I showed to you before comes into picture. We want to interact, like I said before, we want to interact with the services using Cloud Shell terminal, right? Google Cloud Services. You can interact with Google Cloud Services with Cloud Shell terminal. So what's the command I'm going to pass right here is, first of all, I want to navigate into the directory where my project source code is. So this is where we are. Gemini function calling -hack. So let me do that. Okay, there we are. And then what is next is you want to know, you want to deploy your function, right? So I'm just going to copy this command. It's pretty straightforward. Gcloud functions, deploy, bookshelf, runtime. Again, the generation of is not mentioned. Make sure you deploy it to Gen 2. Right now, just for demo purposes, I'll still use Gen 2. I think that's useful. So I'll just call this. I'll go here. I'll paste this. You can also ask Duet AI to help you with this, but right now I know this command already, so I'm going to use it. So it's asking me for the region. I'll just do US Central one. It already exists in first gen. Can't change the environment. Okay, I'll just run it as it is for now. But remember to use Gen 2. Now it's just overwriting an existing function because I have a function with the same name. So it takes a few seconds to deploy, or a few minutes. In this case, it will take up to 2 minutes. Probably it will end in 1 minute. But until then, while it's deploying in the background, I'll just walk you through the other things that you may want to remember. Like I said before, Once this cloud function is deployed, you get a REST endpoint. It'll ask you if you want to do unauthenticated. If you have not specified that in in your command, in our case, we have not. We have already specified it in the command to say allow unauthenticated, which means it will not request you for authentication. It will just give you a public URL which can be accessed from anywhere, if your core policies allow that, of course. If not, there is a way you can cover authentication. We'll see that in the third part of the lab today. Um, so once this is done, you will get a REST endpoint which can be consumed by other applications. You can also call this using a command, gcloud command, and test your deployed cloud function directly. So we are going to do that right now. Once the deployment is complete, it is still going on. So while the deployment is going on, before testing, I'll just walk you through the second part because I just have like 5 more minutes. I'll walk you through the second part, and then we'll come back to step one and see if the okay, it's already deployed. Sorry for scrambling around. It's already deployed. So we have the endpoint right here. It's region hyphen project ID dot cloudfunctions.net/bookshelf, because that is my function name. So I have my URL ready. What I want to do now is I want to call this. So go to CodeLab. I've just copied the calling command from here. You can also alternatively ask Duet AI to help you do that. Or if you know other ways of calling it, you can directly test it from console. You can write a Java program to run that, or you can write a Python program, anything that you want to consume this, right? So as you know, as you can see right here, wait, let me show you in Notepad so it's a bit clearer. As you can see right here, uh, okay, here you go. So gcloud functions call, this is my function name, region, gen2, of course, and the data. If you see, the data has calls and it's an array, JSON array. This is my test prompt. This is just my input that I'm passing in. So I'll copy this, I'll run it, sorry. I'll run it from here. So behind the scenes, it is invoking Gemini to get a response for this test prompt. There we go. So I just passed in a test request, which is hello. This is my test prompt. This is what I asked. This is what I sent as prompt to Gemini, and this is the response I've got. And notice the format of response. It is coming in as a JSON object. It has replies as the label, and then as a key, and the value is hello. This is my test response. This is what Gemini is sending back for the prompt that I sent, which is this is my test prompt. It said this is my test response. That's about it. Now this is Gemini responding to you. You can ask anything. You can ask a paragraph and ask it to summarize. If you see in the CodeLab screenshot, it gave me a whole story about some digital marketing consultancy when I said, hello, this is my test prompt. So if it is feeling lucky, it will just give you any response if your question is random, right? So that's about it. This is how you quickly create a cloud function that invokes Gemini. In 5 minutes, I'll just walk you through something that's or in 3 minutes I'll walk you through something where you're equipped enough to bring in the data, store it in database, and then call this function that you just deployed just using SQL queries, so you're able to access generative AI insights right from where your data lives. All right, so let's quickly look at that. So for this, I'm not going to do the introduction again. You already know what this application does. The second part is the backend part, like I said before, and we are going to use BigQuery for this. We are going to use a data set that is made publicly available in BigQuery. If you know BigQuery public data sets, you already know that there are so many industries from which there are publicly available data that is licensed for educational and prototyping purposes, which you can use for building your applications. I think you can explore. There's an assortment of publicly available data sets that you can leverage for your test applications as well. So I have chosen the bookset data set from this particular public data set from BigQuery. Why I've used that? Because I just wanted to use something handy. I didn't want to insert any new data. That's why. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that publicly available data set, and I'm going to write summary on top of that using the generative insights that we can get from the cloud function which we just deployed. Now you can connect the dots as to why we sent the JSON request in the form of JSON array with a variable name called calls, because that's what BigQuery is expecting. It is expecting to send calls as the value label for the input parameter and is expecting to get a response labeled replies, right? So that is mandatory, and that is why we have hard coded those labels in our cloud functions. Now, moving on, like I said before, the necessary APIs need to be enabled. So that applies to BigQuery as well. Jumping right into BigQuery, I already have my BigQuery console open right here. As you can see, if you don't know how to go to BigQuery, just go to Google Cloud Console. In the search bar, type BigQuery and choose the data warehouse analytics service that pops up once you type that. Select that, and you will see the navigation menu on the left. You'll see Explorer pane. This is where you see your project and you see the data sets that you create. First time when you're doing this, you won't see any data set at all, right? So for creating data set, you click the three dots, click create data set, and create a specific data set. In this case, probably I want to do Hackathon APAC, right? And then I'll see what region I want to create it in, US multi-region, and then I say create data set, okay, underscore APAC, and then click create dataset. In a matter of a second, its dataset is created. This is how you create a dataset. And if you notice, there is also a search bar right here. If you want to search for public dataset, this is where you type whatever you want. So in this case, I wanted GDELT BQ books. So I searched for that and I was able to star it. And that's what you're seeing right here. All right. So explore, this is the data set that we are using. This is publicly available. So if you go to BigQuery right now and run this particular query, you should be able to see result set as well, because gdelt-bq is a public data set which everyone has access to. So you should be able to run this and get the sorry, GDELT is a hyphen BQ is a project. Internet Archive Books is the name of the data set, and 1920 is the name of the table. It is the 1920 contains books from the year 1920, which are digitized or which are stored in this particular table. Right. The reason I chose 1920 is because this is one of those years where we have the entire text of the text of the entire book is available as an object in this particular table. If you scroll this further, you will see that full text as a field, and it contains the entire text of the book. And I was intrigued by it. I wanted to see how to summarize books, and that's the reason I'm using this. All right. Um, so this is what we're using. So you can also alternatively create your new data set, and you can load data into the data set. There are multiple integrations that are available in Google Cloud's data flow service, which allows you to pump data into or out of BigQuery, or integrate. I pump is not the right word. You should probably say migrate or move or insert data into BigQuery in and out. Using these data flow jobs. That is also available if you're bringing in your own data. It is available both to internal services and external services. For example, MongoDB, you're able to connect data from MongoDB to BigQuery and are able to store transactional data in analytical fashion or format in BigQuery, right? So there are out of the box data flow templates that are available for you to use from that. Anyway, moving on, I'll just walk you through the queries. You can explore it at your own time. The first thing is we'll create a remote function, right? So this is how you create a remote function, create or replace function. Bookshelf is a data set which I created right now. I probably named it differently. I probably called it Hackathon-APAC. I also have a data set created called Bookshelf. And then Gemini underscore remote underscore call is the name I want to provide to the function. And then the parameter that I'm passing in is context, returns string. This is a syntax for creating cloud function. Now, remote with connection. External connection is important. So how can you create external connection? Click the add button right here, and it will allow you to choose external data sources. And from connection type, you can choose Vertex AI, because you want BigQuery to talk to Gemini, right? The cloud function that you have deployed. So that is why the cloud function behind the scenes calls Vertex AI. So this connection, external connection, is important to create. I've already created this. That's it. This is the step. And you'll create connection, and then you will provide IAM permission for this connection. That's it. I've already done that, and that's what I call BQ-VX, Vertex. So BQ talks to Vertex. That's what it is. And endpoint. If you notice, this is the endpoint which I just deployed right here. This is the same as this particular URL that I got, HTTPS, and that is the endpoint. In your case, whatever is your endpoint, you'll put that in this place, you'll replace it with that, and you'll run this function. In about a couple of seconds or a few seconds, you will see that the remote function is created. See, it is created. So how do I access the remote function? You just run a select query right here. So this is how, just a select query to access this particular publicly available data, which is 1920 table, which contains books and its summary. Now, what I want to do is I want to take the full text of the book and I want to summarize it using the function that I had just deployed. Right? I deployed and I also exposed it as a remote function in BigQuery. So now I no longer have to call it as an endpoint. Rather, I'll just call the deployed BQ function name, which is Gemini remote call. If you notice, that is what we created right here. So I'm going to call that function right here, and I'm going to pass in the prompt, which is probably some characters from the or some words from the full text of the book itself. You read this part at your own time. I've just concatenated some words from the book, and I'm asking it to summarize only those particular pages of the book. Right, so that's what it is. And once I run this, as you can see right here, this is my book title and this is my summary. The summary is actually what Gemini has returned to me as the summary of the pages that I've sent from the book. So yeah, you can export it in order to read the full length version of the summary. This is not as yeah, it is actually here. This is pretty much it. So that's about it. This is just to demonstrate how you can use the data in your backend data and use Gemini to get generative insights on it, and how you can plug that endpoint, REST endpoint in your backend. Now over to you, Bhushan, to show the full stack client application.
Thanks, Abirami. Hope I'm audible and
Yes.
I'm sharing my screen. Okay, is my screen visible to all? Just thumbs up. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So now we are at the last part of these collab. This is a link, and you can try to do it along with me, or I'll explain. So before we start doing that, let me reiterate what we have done so far and what we're gonna do afterwards. So in the first code lab, we have learned how to deploy a cloud function which will do some kind of a generative AI work for us. So that cloud function is ready, and then you can hit it from anywhere that you want. So it is, you can consider it as a small processing that you need in between execution of your application. So it's a serverless, so you don't have to worry about managing it. So next thing is about from a BigQuery, what we did is wherever our data is, we call that function and we did our processing. Now in this last lab, what we're gonna do is we will present something as an endpoint which you can expose to the clients of your application who will consume whatever the processing that you have done, and that can be consumed by any of the downstream applications, whatever you are developing it. So for that, we will be using this code lab 3, and it looks like this. Again, I'll not spend much time in initial setup because that is already discussed. What we have to do is now we have to create a cloud run application uh, where you will hit it and get the required information that you want. So how can we do that? So this is the same data set. So imagine that you did all the processing that you want, and that data is there in your BigQuery, and you need some mechanism to expose that data to your downstream application. So the assumption here is data is already present in BQ, but you need somebody as a service who can, upon request, will fetch that data from BQ and present it to your downstream applications. So we're going to use the same data, the book that we discussed. So let's not spend more time on doing that. Let's start how to create this app. So I'll take you to the Crowd Console. So imagine you start with um, your typical cloud shell, you do your geauth and all that. And now let's start building this application. So again, here is a tab called Open Editor. You will click on that Open Editor. I have already created this Bookself web app for you, but in case, I'll just quickly repeat how to do that. You can click on your project name here. And when you click it, you can see that I want to create a new application. And now you're saying that I want to create a Cloud Run application, and then you want to do it in Cloud Run, a Java application or Python application based on whatever your requirement is. So in my case, I have done Java. So when I click on here, it will ask me to create the name and everything. Okay, so let's not worry about that for now. So this I have already done. So few things that you need to do. So by default, you will see, that bookshelf web app is created here. You have three things here. One is pom.xml. So when you click this, as per the code lab, you have to add the dependencies. So these are the dependencies about, BigQuery. So just copy this. You can ask it to do it here, or you can directly copy here. So I have done this for you just to save the time. When you come back, next is your the Java function. So if you go into the main, you have this Java function, and this function is here. So this is a core of what you want to develop. Now, if you see this code lab, what it is doing is, this is the class, and when you hit it, this is a query, and this is what you want to respond to this. So this Java file could be any file based on your requirement. So in this code lab, you have given this. So whenever you have a bootstrap structure there, you just copy your Java code that you have, or whatever that you want to write into this. So I have done that, and there is a last tip here that is written, and where you can just comment out the taste class. So here you can see that this part I have just commented out, because these tests I don't want to do it. So these are the small change. Just remember to change your own Java file here. Remember to replace with your own dependencies as per the applications that you have. Once you do this, save all your files and come back to your terminals. So if I come here in my terminal, when I say ls, I see this bookshelf web is created here from the editor. So just go inside it, and now you are inside it. Now see our code lab. Once everything is done, it is time for us to run it. So first, let's compile it, what we have done. So if everything is well, you will not face any kind of an error here. So this is a first step where you are compiling your application. So it will not take much time because it's not so big. Uh, it should finish in no time. Okay, so the compilation is done. And the next step is, now you can run it on locally. Before you deploy it, you can check if everything is correct or not. Are you getting an expected output or not? Let's run it locally. See this here, if you see the message, hello from Cloud Run, the container started successfully and listening to the port. So how can you see that? How can you test it on a local port to make sure that you are getting an expected output or not? You can go here, and here you can click on preview on local port 8080. When you run this, you will see the output. So whatever the query that we have written in our Java file, this is how the answer. Now this you can pass it to any of your downstream application and present to the user as per your requirement. But remember, this is running right now on your local host, and you can't, you want to scale your application, putting it on a local host will not serve your purpose. If you actually want to scale up your application and many users should seamlessly access it, you have to deploy it somewhere else. So how can you do it? You can deploy it on Cloud Run. Okay, so how can we do this? I'll just stop this. Clear. Okay, now this is a last step and very important step in this notebook is you can now deploy this. So this is a command, gcloud run deploy. This is our application from source, allow unauthenticated and the reason. So I'm just copying it and pasting it here. I just need to change this region to US Central 1, and I'll just run this. See, it is building the container, it is creating the revision and traffic. So you will see that this container, will be deployed, and will have a Cloud Run service, and that is a public URL that you can share with your customers. Now here is thing that to remember is here we are saying that allow unauthenticated. So ideally, depend on what corporate organization or structure that you work on, depend on the settings where your project is created. In some cases, this unauthenticated access is blocked by the corporation organization policies also. So I can show you how to access that. So if it is not blocked, probably anybody can take that URL and you can hit it. Just for interest of time, what you can do is, I'm going to show you this function called make authorized get request. So you can just Google it and say make authorized get request, and you will be directed to a documentation. And here is a simple function. You can go this. So you can choose Python or Java or Go, whatever language that you're comfortable with. Just copy this function. Suppose if you have a Python client or some other client who is hitting our URL, you can call this function to make an authorized call. Okay, so here you can see that it is doing gauth and all that. By this way, you can restrict who can access this URL rather than making it open that whomsoever wants can consume it. Again, I'll leave it to you, like the way you want. You can actually use this. um, it is still building. Just okay. So container building is done. So probably in next 30 seconds we'll have our service up and running. So let's give that time. Meanwhile, we have shown you how to create a cloud function to do all your backend processing, how to call that cloud function from BQ, and now this is showing you how to fetch your data from BQ and present it. Now, you can see that everything is done and service URL is this. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. So 100% traffic on here. So now if you copy this URL, if you try to hit this URL, you may say that your client does not have a permission to get it. So this is because of my org policies block me for deploying something which is open. So what you can do to take care of this is you can copy this URL. uh, Before that, if you want to see that, you can just come here and type cloud run. If you just want to see where it is deployed and some statistics about who is hitting, how many requests I'm getting and all that. See this bookshelf, just now. So this is how under cloud run you can see all the services that you have created will be here. So what you need to do is just copy this URL and put it into this function. So this is the URL. Okay, and instead of unauthenticated call, you can use gauth to understand who is calling it and then hit it. By using that, you will get the same results. So these are the same results that we saw, but now in a a secure manner. Okay, with that, we will end this collab. So in this master class, we ran these three use case. Now whatever the your use case, it may be question answering, it could be document summarization, chatbot, it could be code understanding, Q&A or images, and many more. So we are looking forward to see exciting applications from you, and we wish you best of luck for your hackathon. So that's it in this masterclass 2. Over to organizers. Thank you.
Thing on the comment and I'm laughing at it. It's about the flat tire joke. Somebody is developing a mechanical AI bot that can fix a flat tire, it seems. I'm looking forward to seeing that HHUXX1 user. That sounds interesting. Just one last thought before we wind up. I know that we are 1 minute over time, but just wanted to make sure that you understand where in this architecture we actually saw an application end to end in three pieces. Of course, the web application part is really important because you will give a face to your idea. That's what the world is going to see. So definitely you want to focus on that. Of course, the backend is important because that's where you bring in the data and do all your business. The first part is cloud function where we use Gemini. Now, in the second part, backend, you might be wondering, where am I using Gemini here? Remember the part where I showed it's taking the full text from the book. Actually, it is like reading an entire book and summarizing it in 4 lines, if you saw. And what do you think it's is doing that? It's Gemini. right? It's Gemini Pro that we are using. So that is the, how am I accessing Gemini there? That's where we are calling this deployed cloud function as a remote function in BigQuery. Why we have to deploy that as a cloud function first and then invoke in BigQuery? That will be a great question. If you had been live, you probably would have wondered about it. Back in but right before Gemini, we have a few more models like Text Bison 32K and all those things. Those are available out of the box for you to use as a remote model from BigQuery without having to write a cloud function for it. But Gemini has not been made available to use as a remote function directly yet. So as of now, we have to write a cloud function. This is just, I wouldn't say a hack. It's a nice way to do it. It's a neat way to access this API right where your data lives, and that's why I wanted to demonstrate this. So I'll stop here. Over to you, organizers.
Yeah, Virama and Bhushan, thank you so much for joining and giving such a wonderful insights. And thanks everyone for joining and attending the session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.